Welcome to the Spittballin Sports Show. I am Brad Ryder, your host. With me is my co-host Erik Lind. Behind the scenes here is our producer Brandon Davis, aka Diesel. Diesel, you can say hi if you want.
Hi.
There we go. Erik, I think you and I both can agree we got to start today off looking in the college football world. And more specifically, I want to talk about one that you and I called last week. Because we said going into the weekend, watch out. Washington always plays Michigan State really well. And they did just that this weekend.
I mean, there wasn't even really a game, and it was barely a game in the second half. I think Washington started up like 22-0. They just got off on the right foot, and then I think once they got the safety and then scored immediately after, that was when you were like, okay, it's gonna be one of these games. I mean, it's a quality win for Washington. They're ranked now. They're making the Pac-12 look good against we don't really know because it's only week 2 with these rankings. Like, if Michigan State really is a good team, and like this win could come back and be like, oh, Michigan State's like 6, they barely made a bowl game, or Michigan State is like 8-2, like they're having a great year. But I mean, on paper right now, it's a great win for Washington, and they looked really good.
They really did. I watched as much of that game as I possibly could, and you hit it right on the dot. They just kind of started the game hot and just ran away with it. Like, there was the box score. It's like, oh, they only won by 11. Like, that's not a big deal. But then you look at like when they scored, and Washington had control the whole game. Like,
Yeah, there was never really a moment of doubt.
No.
If you were a Washington fan, once you're up 29-8 at the half, you're like, okay.
Yeah. Penix Jr. came out and just balled. He was just like, he kind of knew, I've got this team's number. I'm going to come out and do it. Along with that, Pac-12 being hot. Hey. Oh. Okay. Pac-12 being hot. Oregon beating BYU.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I don't know if it was really expected. I think it was expected to be a good game. I didn't expect it to be this bad of a game for BYU, especially coming off that big win against Baylor they had. I don't know if this is a bad look for Baylor, a good look for, I don't even really know how to like explain it. Like, again, it's week 2, it's early in the season. It's a good win for Oregon. Like we said, this could be a game that sparks Oregon and is like, all right, we're this team coming off of that Georgia loss, and they definitely made a statement winning by 3 touchdowns.
I think this makes Georgia look even better.
Yeah, that also.
I want to say something to that statement, but I want to hit on something that you said. I think this is a great spot for Oregon because had you lost this game, you're sure the season's still played out, but you're not looking at, oh, we're a top contender in the Pac-12. We're, possibly, fighting for that. If there's a one-loss team in the playoff, kind of deal, you're not in that conversation anymore. You're kind of out of it. And so it's a big deal that they win this game. They win against a top 15 team. Kind of goes into the whole, hey, this team had a really bad bout against Georgia. They're bouncing back. They're coming back. We're seeing that with this. And to your point, Diesel, it just shows how good Georgia is. I mean, clearly Georgia's going to be number 1 like the whole year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They look about as dominant as Alabama has in years in the past. Like, they are that team that you're like, I can't see them losing, and I can't see them not winning the championship, right? Unless if some sort of injury were to happen and it kind of just screwed everything up, like, they're probably winning the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's also another good look for the Pac-12 too, like another big win for a Pac-12 team, and you got Washington, you got Oregon, and you got USC now up there in the rankings. So, I mean, good looks for them for a conference that, seems to be pretty down bad in terms of falling apart potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But, also kind of hitting that teams that are kind of looking like, oh, wait, maybe we were wrong or maybe they're doing all right. Texas A&M gets a bounce-back win against Miami in a absolute shitfest.
But that's I can't even call that like a bounce back win because I don't know. Miami is right now, of course, or was a top ranked team, but I
Top
mean the
15.
game just was not good at all, and they didn't look like a top ranked team, especially with like we were talking about all the suspensions and injuries that A&M had, especially in their secondary, and the Miami offense just couldn't get anything going, which was just a really bad look for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was not a good game at all for either team.
No, it wasn't.
I switched off the game to watch Canelo Triple G 3. I mean, that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
It was
I
not
mean,
good football.
Prosper A&M were responding, but I mean, I don't think that. I don't know, man. They could win this week
But like, did
against
they really
Arkansas,
respond?
but like, yeah.
My response, I mean, you got a dub after coming off a pretty bad loss last week. Like, I think we can all agree that loss last week was really bad.
That was awful.
Mm-hmm.
Getting the win, that alone is just like a, hey, what happened last week was last week. We're moving on. And that if you're a Texas A&M fan, you're looking at it and saying, okay, the season's not over, right? It's not looking great. You're still kind of pissed off about last week, but you're going in with this win and being like, you know what, the season's not over. We can still play. We can still compete. We'll see how it comes as they start to play. So they're more respectable. I wouldn't say respectable, but like those opponents that are like, ooh, like that's the team that you're gonna, when they play at Alabama or Georgia, they're obviously gonna get their.
They're playing Arkansas this week. It's gonna be way more.
That's a game I'm gonna highlight when we get to next week's the games upcoming.
But like the quarterback, but Max Johnson just didn't look good as a backup either. I mean, they got the win, but like the defense, A&M's defense is what's keeping them in these games.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying they're a bad team. I just think their offense is atrocious. Like their defenses can win them a national championship, literally. But if they just had a competent offense, they would be right up there. But I don't know.
They just haven't shown anything on offense, at least.
Oh
no, not one.
Not even against Sam Houston State.
Yeah, you don't have that this year. Last one that I kind of think we needed to really hit on from this last week, man, talking about Texas A&M getting ready to play Arkansas. Arkansas almost had an upset this week.
That was scary.
That was scary for the last little bit of that game. It was kind of one of the things, we have, Michael, our fraternity brother, is just like, he's a big time Arkansas fan. And I was texting him during the game. I was like, hey, you guys gonna be all right? Are we gonna make it through this?
I mean, Arkansas was a 26-point favorite coming into this, and rightfully so. I mean, you're playing Missouri State, but up until the final few minutes of that third quarter, they were down 10, and then they scored. I think it was 3 unanswered touchdowns to end up coming back to win that game. But that was, I mean, not a good look for Arkansas in the slightest. And now you have to go play a much better team.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know.
A team that you would say is better than Missouri State, I would hope.
Yeah.
I
mean, if you're Arkansas here, like, you're happy you got the win, but like, we got to tighten up. It's yeah.
I think there's a lot of teams from this week that you can say, hey, happy we got the win, but man, we got some crap we got to tighten up, really.
But it's also like, still early in the season. Teams really haven't hit their form yet, so it's fine. And like, you hope these teams would hit their form as the season goes on. I think some we're going to see that actually will get their form, but others were like, okay, maybe the early season wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, I think you're very right on that. I want to look to this next week with college football, though. Just because there's some fun. Not a lot, but there is some things that
just
I think
like
we
last
can
week.
all, that we just kind of like last week. Like, we're all going to watch this upcoming weekend for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here looking at the one I think that, we're kind of all talking about them right now. We might as well start with this being Arkansas A&M. A&M comes out as 2-point favorites as of the recording right now on Tuesday. And I think that's because you get 3 for being home, aren't they? At A&M.
Yeah, they are at A&M. I'm staying away from that game. If I'm I mean, I kind of am a betting man, but
I mean,
I am staying away from that game. It's just, I mean, you got Arkansas coming off that game against Missouri State, and then A&M, who's proven nothing. Like, I kind of want to roll with Arkansas here because A&M just hasn't shown anything besides defense, and I think it's going to be. You would think after what you've seen from these teams, it's going to be a fairly low scoring game. But I mean, it is college football. And anything can happen. So
it is, but also I want to look at, like you were just talking about, the very end of that Arkansas game. 3 unanswered touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. It's what you expected to see from Arkansas the entire game.
Well, that's exactly. Now let's take a look at that on the A&M side. We're saying, okay, if Arkansas even gets 2 unanswered touchdowns, do you trust that Texas A&M offense to be able to make a comeback on that? I'm not positive I can say that. Like,
no,
because I sit here and say, "Oh man, I think Texas A&M can do it." Their offense has not shown enough for me going into this game to believe that they could do that. And so,
no,
you're right. Arkansas realistically should win this game. You know, somewhere around 10
A&M's
points. I feel like it should be around 10. You know, give or take a point or two, but
I mean, it's a big game for A&M. They can come out and they can prove something.
Texas A&M
and then
wins
Arkansas
this game, it just goes back to show that game that they lost was a literal fluke. That was all it was.
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas is going to be the best team you face up to this point. And you got them in a home game, so that's like best case scenario for you. You're coming off a win against another ranked team, so I mean, you're riding the momentum the best you can into this one. If you're
ranked team that a lot of people also said was going to beat you. Like, there were people all over TV, radio, everything saying, yeah, Texas A&M should not beat Miami. And they did. And so it's like, I would sit here and say, oh, Arkansas is going to win this game. I mean, we were saying Miami should have won last week. So, like, I'm not going to count A&M out and say they can't win. But, like, we know one way that we would like kind of lean at this point. But the line only being 2 points, like, to me, just kind of shows that even Vegas doesn't really know who they really expect to win this game.
They're just giving like the courtesy home favorite, and they're calling it a day. They're saying, all right,
pretty much.
You bettors can have at it.
Yeah. So other games this next week that I kind of wanted to look at. We've got a couple of games that are like intriguing, but you don't really like. I wouldn't say they're headline games, right? Clemson, Wake Forest is kind of one of those games. They're both 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's such a level between Clemson and Wake, like such a distance.
And rightfully so, too.
Yeah. And so it's sure, they're both 3-0, both Pac-12. I'm going to go look. I'm going to go watch. But after halftime, Clemson's probably going to be up 10, 15. Somewhere 10-14, and I'm gonna be like, all right, cool. They're just gonna.
You would like to think, yeah, they're only 7-point favorites, and I mean, from the past, I've seen Wake Forest give Clemson its problems, and I mean, Wake Forest looks good out of the gate this year, but I think Clemson's, defense and offense, both sides, is going to be too much.
They just look so good, and they're ranked 5 for a reason. I think there's someone that, when we're talking about, I said Pac-12 earlier, they're ACC. I fully expect them to be the champion coming out of the ACC that's contending for the playoff. That's who you expect. If it's anybody else, they're not going to probably make it. Mm-hmm. So if you're anybody who's looking at this and saying, all right, who's going to win? I would hope and expect it to be Clemson. Bouncing into the just kind of quick hit here, hit there. 2 Big 12 matchups this week that, there's multiple, but there's these 2 that, like, I think really have a shot at possibly being, like, upsets. We're talking about
Baylor, one of them being Iowa State Baylor. That's my big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one for me.
3-0. Iowa State always seems to be, if you're ever ranked in the Big 12 and you're not Oklahoma, when you go to play Iowa State, you're scared. Like,
the atmosphere in Ames is just insane.
They ruin rating or undefeated seasons. Like, that's what they do. That's just their sole existence. It's just ruining your life if you're a fan who's had expectations for a season.
Yeah, especially if they're 3-0 coming into this game. I mean, you're facing a ranked team. Like the fans in Ames are. I mean, they're.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously the fans are always going to be good, but when you're, when Iowa State has a good team, it's going to be
It's a completely
even
different
more
ballgame.
rowdy out
It's
there.
a completely different
Yeah.
ballgame. They always show up against ranked opponents. Like those fans will
Always.
come out and
Always.
cheer and get loud and be absolutely a difference maker going up against a ranked opponent.
Exactly.
Same point. I bounce over. I look at Texas Tech. I'm like, Texas Tech has had some good wins this year. They didn't win last week. They've got that potential to upset. Big 12 always just kind of beats itself up. Texas is 6.5 point
Shoots
favorites.
itself in the foot.
Yeah. Texas is 6.5 point favorites, so you can kind of tell, like, hey, Texas realistically should win this game. It's also, though, I don't know how much you keep up with what's going on Twitter, but it is the Dana Beers official visit for Texas Tech. So he is going to be there, and that
maybe
crowd,
they'll be fired up.
that
Maybe
crowd
they'll
is
be
going to
fired
be
up.
loud in
Yeah.
this game. So I'm intrigued to see that 6.5. Like, you vote Texas, you bet Texas on this. They're going to win.
Before we move on, one more with the Big 12, Kansas State and OU. I think OU is getting an upset Kansas State team. You're coming off a loss. I think it was like Tulane or something.
That should not have happened.
But if you're K-State, like you have the run game to control the game. This is just like a very outlandish take. It's just like coming off the back of my head. Like you have the run game to control the game and keep the ball out of OU's offense's hands, which is obviously what you want to do. But I mean, Kansas State's beaten OU before in Norman.
Yeah.
But this is a different, obviously, completely different OU team. But I don't know. I mean, maybe a little upset alert there for me. Kansas State over OU potentially.
I definitely would say so. I wasn't gonna talk about it because it's like, OU K-State, but like I'm high on K-State this year. I really think there's a shot they upset that, and that would be absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's just.
Quick, I
don't know. I think if you're OU coming in there, I'm sorry. I'm just so like, I don't know. This is just like irking me because I see that matchup and you're like, oh, OU's going to win. But then OU's like, oh, we're getting this K-State team that just lost to Tulane. They put up 10 points against them. I don't know. It's just, it's kind of there.
If OU's defense could come out and let's like really ball.
Make a statement. Then
those first, realistically, those first two drives that K-State gets, if you hold them to like 0 to 3 points on those drives, you pretty much have the game. It's you just can't let them score early because once they score early, that team just has a snowball.
Yeah, and their defense has the potential to fly around and make some plays. So
absolutely, there is one more top 25 matchup being Florida Tennessee, but I don't think it's one that we need to talk about a whole lot because I'm Tennessee's come out and been absolute force to be reckoned with on offense. This start of this season so far, they're 10.5 point favorites.
Yeah,
I don't think there's as much of a possible upset or anything we need to talk about with that game. And
I mean, Florida came out, they beat a top 10 team in Utah like week 1, and that's how they initially got their ranking. But I don't know. Tennessee's been there, been up there. They've had the quality wins. They've shown their offense, and I mean, you're at Tennessee, so it's. Not a done deal, but it's I'm highly confident Tennessee is going to win.
It's kind of like the OU or even the Texas game where you're like, I'm fairly confident this person's going to win. But I wouldn't be surprised if Florida made it a game. Absolutely.
Made it a game, yeah.
Well, let's, as I like to say, bounce over to the men's league, Eric, because this week was insane for the NFL. And
absolutely nuts.
It started with yours is my favorite game, which is when our teams play each other.
Yeah, and first game of the week. It was a perfect opener to the what was such a crazy week on Thursday Night Football.
Oh my gosh, absolutely! Coming down to like the wire, coming down to there were mistakes on both sides of the ball. It was, there was so many things in that game that I'm like, I look back at that and I'm like, realistically. anything could have happened that game. That game could have ended completely differently just by, like, I don't know.
A few plays.
A few plays. I literally don't even think that. Like, literally just, it was like 1 degree colder. Matt Amendola doesn't kick, gets a little tight in the leg or whatever. All of a sudden, we're going to overtime. Completely different game. Like, anything was possible then. I think you and I kind of said it this year. Realistically speaking, when you looked at these teams, you knew they were probably going to split. Like, when you were in Arrowhead, it was going to be a tough one. Chargers have come and won an Arrowhead before, but the Chiefs do a really good job of winning when they're at home. Chargers going into LA, I think there's a possibility that the Chargers win that. I think that's a very reasonable thing to believe.
Yeah, and personally, the Chargers just had too many opportunities to win this game. I mean, we had Asante Samuel Jr. drop 2 interceptions. I think we had like 2 or 3 called back just from penalties, and I in my mind, like, you're upset if you're a Chargers fan. You're upset you lost the game, but what your team showed, it shows the Chiefs are beatable, and it shows the Chargers can do it. And I personally, I mean, obviously, I'm going to say biased. Like, I think we will split, and we'll end up taking that game at SoFi. I mean, which is, like you said, what we expected. But it's just the mistakes just piled up for the Chargers, and I mean that's ultimately where it went wrong. And then Herbert getting hurt was just not good. Even, I mean, that's just crazy to me what he did at the end of that game, being as hurt as he was. Yeah, it's just nuts.
You're completely right on that, and I would like to say bias and say that the Chiefs are going to go 2-0 on them and stuff like that, but in reality, that's just probably not the case. Like, we have to recognize the Chargers are also a really good team. You were right that you showed the Chiefs are beatable because you guys had the opportunities. You also saw that if the game is close, it's never over with the Chiefs as well. If the game is within a score, they will find a way. Patrick Mahomes I don't understand it, but he seems to find a way every time. It doesn't matter who. And now with how deep that receiving core and that offense is, it almost makes it a little harder. Like, that's kind of what when I was listening to some, sports talk Friday. It was like, all they showed you is that you can't just cover one guy and essentially have this team figured out. Like you kind of did last year when they could cover Tyreek in that too high. You can play that too high still. And then all of a sudden here comes Juju and, Travis and Clyde out of the backfield down low playing quick routes, and they're just going to dink and dime you the whole way. And then if when you try and play up close, all of a sudden Justin Watson, 25-plus yard touchdown.
I also think it's a big sign of maturity from Mahomes because he's like accepted the fact that the offense isn't going to be Tyreek 60 yards downfield. Let me just throw it off my back foot and he'll go and catch it. He's matured a lot in that he can make these drives last longer, especially against a team with another good quarterback like Herbert, where you want to keep the ball out of his hands. You can make these drives last longer. He threw to 9 different guys. And he targeted 10, which is just like it. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. You kind of knew it was going to happen with a quarterback like Mahomes. Like these guys are going to have to end up making plays for him, which they did, especially when it was needed. But I mean, everyone thought when you take Tyreek Hill out of the offense, it makes it easier to cover. But realistically, it's the Chiefs, and you have all these skill guys, and they're all going to be good at some point.
The big thing that spoke to me was that game. Sky Moore was not targeted once.
Yeah, I mean that's another guy you can add in there. I mean, you guys just have.
I don't know if my wonder is I don't know if that's Andy Reid saying hey, we're gonna keep you in our back pocket a little bit longer until later in the season when we kind of teams start to quote unquote figure us out or whatever, or if that's we don't need this game isn't one that we're gonna kind of need you, or if
not in the game plan kind of thing,
not in the game plan, because I'm sure if you think about it, how Sky Moore kind of was going to line up. He was going to be covered by J.C. Jackson of all people.
Yeah,
Sky Moore is on the smaller end. I feel like that wasn't a favorable matchup, and so they were like, okay, sorry, you're kind of going to get put on the back burner this weekend. We'll catch you next week. We'll see what happens.
Or it's one of those things where it's like I said, a game planning kind of thing where against the Chargers, you maybe don't want to try to take the top off the defense. Like, not just because the Chargers have a good defense, but like, I mean, you don't want to like game plan for that and then let the pass rush get to you and give them momentum and stuff like that. You want to keep your game quick, and Sky Moore is more of like a deep threat. I'm sure he'll get his looks, obviously, but it's just probably against a team where like it's not like a game where you know you're going to win, but you know you're going to have a lot of time in the pocket, and you can like let these bigger plays go, and you know, I don't know. I think it's a game planning thing in my eyes.
But yeah, I mean, you guys did get a lot of. I mean, Mahomes wasn't exactly just standing in the pocket all game, and we kind of knew that coming in. You guys were going to get that pass rush was going to come through, and here we are. You know,
end of the day, Chargers are going to be. I mean, it's going to be 1A, 1B in the AFC West for Chargers Chiefs. That's my eyes.
Pretty much what we said. I do want to bounce real quick. Talk about, since we're on the AFC West matchup, how bad the other two teams in the AFC West
Jesus, dude.
Holy
Jesus, crap. Bro. It's like the last thing I expected.
I don't know which is worse, in my opinion. Oh, we went and traded for a receiver and made him the highest paid receiver, and we get run up on. Or freaking... Sorry, Diesel left, and so my mind just blanked. Trading for a quarterback and making him the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL, not in the NFL, but at least one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. And I feel like you don't even really get touchdowns.
Yeah, the offense that Denver displayed against a bad Texans team, especially in a home game where you can probably let Russell Wilson air it out a bit to Cortland Sutton or anyone that can really get open downfield. They have the weapons to do it. I just feel like it was just like bad. I feel like the offensive play calling has a little bit to do with it as well. Because some of the plays they were running were just weird. I saw a 3rd and 1 play where they ran like a toss option to their tight end. I was just like, what are we doing here? And then you go all the way back to week 1 where you don't even let Russell Wilson throw the ball on a 4th and 5 where like you could get closer, and instead you let your kicker kick a 64-yarder. And that brings me to this week where the Broncos had the opportunity in Denver at 5,200 feet above sea level, all that elevation. Instead of kicking a 59-yarder with McManus, they punted. So that's like, what are we like? What's going on here? What are we doing, Nathaniel Hackett?
You were in one of the hardest stadiums the first week to kick a field goal, and you attempted the 3rd longest in NFL history. And then you go into your stadium where realistically your kicker has a bunch of experience, and yet you won't
easiest stadium to kick a field goal if you're a home team. Yeah.
And you don't do that. Like, that baffles me. Absolutely baffles me. And also the lack of production that we've seen on this offense. I feel like, and this is just like, I feel like they really tried with, we're going to get Russ in. We've got some of these younger pieces. You got Javonte Williams, whom I like as a running back, but I don't feel like they're utilizing in their whole offensive scheme isn't one that's great for him. You've got Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, who aren't bad. They're not bad receivers, but they're not great. They're not those guys. Like, Jerry Jeudy's the only one that you're like, maybe he can get there.
He only had 3 targets this week.
He only got 3 targets. But his route tree that they had him running this weekend was terrible.
It was not Jerry Jeudy.
It wasn't Jerry Jeudy.
At this point, like, Jeudy should be the wide receiver 2, and you need to let him like run. Like, he could be one of the best route runners in the league. But they just, I don't know. I feel like they're limiting him. I feel like they're limiting that whole offense.
Very much so. I completely agree on that. It does hurt,
but also
having Tim
one more
Patrick
thing
get hurt at the beginning of the year. Like, that does affect them.
That hurt.
Yeah.
But one more thing about the Broncos offense, they had 3 goal-to-go opportunity, like 3 drives of goal-to-go opportunities, and I think they ended in 3 field goals. It was in the first half, and it's just like, I think that was the Sunday night game where they fumbled them against Seattle, or Monday night game, whatever that was. But they had the opportunities again this week, and they still failed. If they get their red zone offense down, they'll be good because they can get down the field. Maybe not in the most efficient manner, but they can get there.
Yeah.
But they just can't finish.
You just got to finish, yep. I think
Yeah, I mean,
that's a fair
it'll
assumption.
come, but I don't know. The first 2 weeks, the Broncos just
Bad, and
really
then
bad.
yeah, Raiders like it's kind of the same way. Like
He blew a 20-point lead.
20
Uh
point lead to yeah, a Cardinals team that wasn't doing anything. Like at
oh.
the beginning of the game, like the beginning of that game, they weren't doing anything. Like you
No.
should have put the pedal to the fucking floor and just run them over, and then you don't have that problem. But for some reason, that second half rolls around, and they started getting conservative. They started being like, "Oh, we're up so much, we're just gonna kind of run the ball a lot. You know, we'll eventually get down the field and kick a field goal, or score another touchdown or something like that." And then all of a sudden, the Cardinals were like, Kyler Murray decided to go X Games mode, and it's like, "Oh crap! Like,
Mhm.
I
It's like,
gotta.
wait a minute. These guys are actually good.
These guys are actually playing now."
Mhm.
And it was like,
I think that was the case in a lot of games this week where teams got big leads, and we'll get to those games later. Teams got big leads,
yeah,
and they just, took the foot off the gas, and they let the other team get back into the game. They ended up losing for it. And I think that's like a testament to how good a lot of these NFL teams are becoming, because it used to be very top heavy, but now all these rookies are coming in, they're developing, they're making teams better. There's not a lot of teams in a rebuilding phase right now like there were a couple years ago.
yeah,
Um, but like teams are better than people expect, I think.
absolutely.
And you let one team get momentum and it can just roll over, and that's exactly what happened in this one. I mean, the Cardinals scored 22 unanswered in
Yeah,
the fourth quarter. The
like
fourth quarter and
really,
overtime alone.
dude.
But
Yeah,
like, Jesus, Raiders, what are we doing?
yeah,
They're not a good
absolutely.
start to the year for the Raiders at all.
No,
But
not a
I
great
mean, at
start
the
for
end
the
of the
Raiders
day,
at
you got
all.
Devontae Adams, so anything's possible for them.
Whatever. um, yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like it's just so bad. Like you and I were talking about, like, oh, it's possible that you get three playoff teams out of this division, and so far through 2 weeks, I can't say that.
There's two
There's
playoff teams
two
right now.
playoff teams out of that division right now, and
Mm-hmm.
realistically looking at it, like I'm okay with that because I think there are some other teams in the AFC that have kind of shown that they're not as good and or as
Mm-hmm.
bad as we really thought, and we're like, okay, so there are some other teams that are going to get to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of just want to start going through some of the slate of teams that kind of showed up, whether it's a comeback or whether it was, oh man, they like came out of
Just
nowhere.
showing up in
Yeah,
general, yeah.
but so I'm gonna start with teams that just kind of showed up. I mean, both the Monday night games, like bouncing complete opposite end. Both Monday night games, the teams showed up. Eagles came out and said, "Nah, like we're the top dog in the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna try to be at least." And Darius Slay had a hell of a game. He
He
could
should
have
have had
had
like 8 picks.
he should have like I think they counted it was like 6 or 7
It was,
picks. Was like
yeah.
realistically like he could have had, and it's like holy crap. Kirk Cousins just shits the bed again on prime time as
I mean,
he does,
the
but
the back half of that game, the Eagles were just like, we're just gonna throw blitzes. They literally blitzed like
every
6 or 7 straight plays, and Kirk was just throwing it off his back foot. It would, if you're a Vikings fan, like I would have thrown up watching that game. Like I
it
was just, ugh,
it goes
that
back
was
to that whole
bad.
thing. I mean, Tennessee did this. They were down obviously a lot more, but if I was a Vikings fan, you hit that fourth quarter and like they're throwing blitzes at you, and obviously Kirk's just kind of panicking. It would have made me really wish I had Kellen Mond in that situation because he would have been the type of quarterback that could have, scrambled around a little bit, gotten
Tried
up.
his best
Yeah,
away, but that Eagles defense was hungry last night. It was crazy.
it was absolutely insane. And going then to the other Monday night game, Bills,
That
just
was.
holy crap.
I mean, it's.
Talk about a team that all gas, no brakes.
I didn't expect a win like this, but I expected Buffalo to win big. Don't get me wrong. I bet
Yeah.
them -10, but I did not expect a 34-point win.
No, I don't think anybody expected them to win.
No, and Stephon Diggs
You tell
is
me
my
21.
fantasy wide
I'm like,
receiver one.
damn.
Yeah, Stephon Diggs is insane.
Yeah.
I mean,
Him and Josh Allen
him,
together.
him
Who
and Josh
let that
Allen
happen?
alone
Who let that
is just like. I mean, Josh Allen threw to a bunch of different guys, but he threw to Stephon Diggs 14 times, and he caught 12 of them, 3 of them being touched. It was just
happen? Yeah.
I don't know. You don't even really need a run game if you're Buffalo at this point, because
No,
Josh
you
Allen
don't.
could be your run game too. I don't know.
If
And
you're
then you have that defense that stuffed Derrick Henry, held him to less than 2 yards per carry. But I think
Poyer
the
is on
Tennessee
pace
offense
for
is one
17
dimensional.
picks this year. He's had a pick every game.
Who is this?
Jordan Poyer,
Oh, really?
or he had two last night. I quit watching at halftime, but
I don't blame you.
but it was one of those things where it was like he's on pace for 17 picks this year because he's had at least a pick, I think, in both weeks.
That's just the Buffalo defense.
And it's just it is though. Like this was a team that had top 5 players at multiple positions and yet somehow didn't have anybody in the Pro Bowl last year. It's like wow. I mean, I almost wanted to turn the game back on when I saw the notification on Twitter that Malik Willis was coming in because I felt like
It wasn't good.
I know it wasn't good. I watched the highlights, but just because
No one wants to win the AFC South. No one wants to win it.
Nobody wants to win.
I'm certain of that point. Maybe Jacksonville wants to, but no one wants to win it.
Imagine Doug Peterson comes in 1 year into this and just says, "All right, Jacksonville, like we're going to the playoffs with Trevor Lawrence."
It was 7-10 and wins the AFC South.
God, you would have thought that was like the NFC East.
Yeah, but I mean the Eagles.
You got the best quarterback in
past, like when the Cowboys used to win it, going 8-8 and shit like that. Like, like
Just
that
terrible.
Terrible football.
I mean,
in that division.
You look at the Titans and you think, okay, it might be the team that could do it, but then you look at their offense and you have Derrick Henry, which is great, but Ryan Tannehill's not the guy.
He's not
Their offense becomes too one-dimensional. That's what the problem was last night. Their offense is too one-dimensional. Buffalo can just hone in on one specific thing, that thing being the giant in the backfield, that if you gang tackle him, you can get him down, and that's what they did.
That's what they did.
And they held him to less than 2 yards per carry, and Ryan Tannehill barely had a 50% completion percentage. It's not going to win you football games.
I heard a conversation today from LaDainian Tomlinson. So, respect, because I respect his opinion a lot. And he says, anytime you have a rookie wide receiver as your wide receiver 1, realistically,
Traylon Burks. Yeah.
You're screwed.
Them losing A.J. Brown was huge.
Them trading A.J. Brown and being like, hey, we'll just take Traylon Burks. I get they have Robert Woods. Doesn't matter. You don't have a wide receiver. Like, Robert Woods was an okay. He was realistically like maybe wide receiver 2. Could have been knocked down to wide receiver 3 in L.A. And you it's almost like they're trying to act like he's the wide receiver 1, and he's never really been the wide receiver 1 in my mind, even at all in his time in LA. And so,
and rightfully so.
And so, I do agree with you. Ryan Tannehill is not like the guy. Like if you expect a team to go to a Super Bowl, I do not expect Ryan Tannehill to be behind the helm. He's not a bad quarterback if you're trying to be like, all right, we're getting some other pieces in. We want to kind of stay competitive because we have some guys, but like if we go 8-8, like we can say, oh, we have Ryan Tannehill. That's the kind of
that
guy
was
I
our
feel
problem.
like he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of guy I feel
I
like
mean,
he is.
he was the guy when they had A.J. Brown. I thought the team was great when they had A.J. Brown because you have that number 1 guy that can do it. And I think if they kept A.J. Brown and had Traylon Burks and Robert Woods, this would be a completely different team. Because then if you're the defense, you can say, all right, we have to focus on 2 guys now on the offense, and then you have Traylon Burks come in, who is a great player,
and again,
that is sort of being hindered, but
I think again,
if Traylon Burks is the number 1 guy.
Yeah, I think again, kind of also what we were talking about with the Broncos, when I look at Traylon Burks, I'm like, he doesn't need to be the wide receiver 1. He needs to be you're the opposite end. You're the guy who's opening up the defense for the rest of the routes. You put him on a go and you just send him. Right? And because that's what he was when he was at Arkansas.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what he's good at. He's good at running. He was the fastest wide receiver in the draft this year, wasn't he?
Something like that. He was up there. But like,
and it's just like,
I don't know.
I feel like if you take a guy who's a speedster and try to make him a route runner, or you take a guy who's a route runner and try to make him somebody that you throw too deep, that doesn't just happen in one off season. You got to give him time on that. The off season you could have been working on that. This season you could be working on that. But realistically, when it comes to game time, like, you should have been, like, utilizing him to his strengths more and using that. Because I feel like Robert Woods is, like, an okay route runner. You could be using him as your, like, all right, I need an out. I need a slant. I need a,
I need a quick hitter, like something to get us a little bit of yards and not, stress about it.
Absolutely. But again, AFC South, garbage. Colts.
What the hell's going on? What are we doing here?
Frank Wright came out today and said, "Oh no, we're doing fine, guys. Like, we're okay." And I'm like, "How?
Sure about that?
How?" Because
sure about that?
Michael Pittman goes out for a game and you can't even put up a fucking point. Matt Ryan looks worse than he ever has.
3 picks.
Ever. Like, even his rookie season, he was never this bad.
I don't even know what to say about that team. It's like Pittman was their guy week 1, but now that you lose him, nobody stepped up.
You can't do anything. It's like, I'm sorry, you missed out because you should have either gone and got Ty back, even though he wouldn't have been healthy for most of the season. You could have gotten him back, and he might have been healthy for this game. You should have gone and tried to get Julio when he was available. Now you're fucked, and you guys have a team that everyone was saying this offseason could go. Like, you've got the running back. You've got the defense. You brought in a guy who was supposed to be a stud at quarterback. You were better off last season at this point with Carson Wentz than you are right now with Matt Ryan.
They only gave Jonathan Taylor 9 carries this week against the Jaguars defense. And sure, he was getting, like, bottled up in the beginning. But again, it's like we were just talking about with the Titans.
You can't step away from that.
It's like we were just talking about with the Titans. Like, the defense knows that they're not really going to be able to throw the ball because their guys are out. So they're like, okay, if we stop Jonathan Taylor, and then once they get to 3rd and long, we just play, we drop 7, drop 8, and make Matt Ryan throw the ball, and that's what they did, and it worked. I mean, I don't know.
That's where I go back and I say, someone like the Panthers who has Christian McCaffrey, who's like, he can go out. He can go out and play on the outside. If you're the Colts, one, Jonathan Taylor isn't necessarily bad in the pass game. Come out in high form, give it to him out of the backfield even.
Expand his role. Have him and Hines on the field at the same time. Try something new.
That would have anything. Because at this point, you're down. You don't have any points on the board. If you don't have any points on the board by halftime, at this point, just throw the whole damn playbook at the game and figure out what can actually work.
Yeah, try new things. Try things you're supposed to pull out in week 7 and pull them out in week 2. Bring out all the stops, and it's funny because we're talking about this like they're playing the best team in the league. They're playing the Jaguars. Playing the Jaguars. But credit to Trevor Lawrence, dude. I mean, he played a hell of a game.
I guess they knew something about Christian Kirk that like nobody else knew, because like everyone was like going into this offseason like why would you pay him so much money?
Yeah, I was one of those people. I was one of those people. He's good as a wide receiver. I only thought he was good because DeAndre Hopkins was on that team, and he was alongside Hopkins. So he would Kirk would win his ones, and he'd catch some balls, and he'd look good. But he's being a very good wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville, which I didn't expect. And credit to him. And him and Lawrence, it seems like they have great chemistry. I don't know. They look good. And then their run game was, not the best, but
yeah,
you got 2 backs that can make plays happen, James Robinson, Travis Etienne, and you got Evan Ingram, who Lawrence seems to like a lot, apparently, after I guess he just needed a change of scenery to become good at the game, or maybe a quarterback that could throw the ball.
He was on the Giants.
Yeah.
Let's remember,
that's
he was
true.
on the
That's
Giants.
True. You're right. I'll give him that.
He was on the Giants. Yes, I think that change of scenery helps a lot of people. Before we get into the upsets, I do want to highlight, I think yours and I's favorite underdog team this year, because the Lions won a fucking game.
Yeah, I love the Lions, bro.
Holy shit.
I love these guys. Their offense is nasty. They have so many weapons. If they can take an off season and build up the defense, they are going to be a great team. Because their offense has so many weapons right now. It's actually insane how good they are.
I do want to say I'm going to admit I was wrong, because I've never thought Jared Goff was a guy. I thought I thought basically the rest of the weapons on the Rams offense carried him in that Super Bowl with the good defense that they had.
Rightfully so.
I never felt like it was really him.
Yeah.
And now, this season, he doesn't have remotely half of what he had at LA. And he looks good.
He looks decent. He's developing with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's come out to be like fantasy wide receiver god, like number one.
He's so good.
Yep. And then him, and you got DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams in the backfield. I mean, that's really what you need. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown opens up options like T.J. Hawkinson, who's a great tight end. He's always been known to be a good tight end. I don't know. They just have so many weapons for Goff, and if Goff just can continue to just like execute, that offense is going to be. They're going to pull off some upsets this year, I think.
Diesel, you were saying something at one point.
I mean, I don't know. Like Detroit's offense is legit. Like their offense is right now the hottest thing in the NFL. I mean, they put up 35 against the Eagles, and not even the Vikings could put up just a touchdown on them. Like, that's another thing, too. Like, and I don't know, I just, with Amon, St. Brown, it's just, he's wide receiver one there. I mean, there's no longer discussion.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, my thing was, like, my question going into the season was the run game. If the run game can get going for them, they're going to be a scary team. And right now, it's looking like the run game's going really well with them right now. DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams.
I love DeAndre Swift.
Yeah,
I love that man.
Yeah, they're going to be a good team. Like, I mean, it's just this is the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, they just got to build their defense a little bit, and they're going to like potentially be contenders. Maybe get one more weapon on offense, and they're going to be in the conversation. I would think, at least.
You add
like
another wide receiver on that team beside Amon-Ra and then DJ Chark and somebody else that can kind of either you want to say is kind of more of a big-bodied, I hate to say it, Megatron-esque. Not necessarily Megatron. I'm like, there's nobody who will be Megatron, but Megatron-esque, big body kind of guy. That team could go
like an N'Keal Harry, bring him back from the dead.
Good.
What once could have been.
I wish. Where did he just? He went to Chicago. He's at Chicago.
He's in the Chicago graveyard right now.
Graveyard for wide receivers.
Yeah, dude. We got random receivers right now. I don't want to talk about the game that much. I really don't.
I don't think we're gonna really talk about that game a whole lot. Because I think realistically, we can all say, hey, Green Bay came back. Chicago looked okay. They didn't look great, but they looked okay.
I'll just say that we'll talk about when we go into next week's game. But I'll just say this: if Chicago loses to Houston,
chalk it. Call it a day.
At that point, chalk the season at that point. I just want to hit a couple of quick points. Just checking on our time with this last week. Congratulations to the Giants. You're 2-0. I think everyone would have expected you to have been 0-2 at this point. Panthers figured the fuck out.
Yeah, they're down bad. They are a down bad football team. You got like one of the best running backs in the game, and you have a former number one pick who is just not the guy for you at this point. I mean, under 50% completion percentage. I don't know. I don't even know what to tell you.
Here's my thing with it, and the thing that irritates me. They waited so long to get him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get Baker earlier, he gets time with those guys. Great. There's a shot. Maybe you can win some games. He gets a chance with the playbook. You waited so long to pick him up. Like, was it that you just couldn't agree on a draft pick to trade? Or was it that someone had to go down and sit down with fucking Matt Rule and I forget whoever the fuck the offensive coordinator is now and say, hey, listen, Sam Darnold ain't it. And we're going to go get Baker. And
that quarterback room is just so tough.
Dude, it's so bad. I feel bad, but also good because, like, I really hope that Baker turns it around. I want Baker to do decent in Carolina. I think Carolina with that team is a good spot for him right now. God, get another coach, for Christ's sake.
Let Rule go back to Baylor. Is that what you're saying?
Matt Rule can go to Nebraska. That's what I'm saying. He
yeah,
could go to
that's
Nebraska because that's the only coaching position we know is open right now in
Arizona
football.
State.
Oh, Arizona State too. Forgot Herm Edwards got fired. So either of those, go there. Go with there.
Yeah.
The only reason I said Nebraska is it's kind of like that's kind
Big
of
name.
yeah, big name. I mean, Arizona State's a big name, but I feel like that's not necessarily the kind of person, like the kind of place Matt Rule would thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So, but go do something else because obviously it's not working for you.
I mean, it's early for him and Baker.
Yeah.
I want to give him a chance because you've got DJ Moore, you got Robbie Anderson, you have Christian McCaffrey.
Baker and Robbie look in sync right now.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I'll give them a couple more weeks before I really chalk it because I think they have the talent to be, half decent, but they haven't showed me anything at this point.
No. You want to talk about talent. The talent that was displayed in the Dolphins-Ravens game is insane. That game was the definition of I'm getting the notifications on Twitter being like, who the fuck turned Madden on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. who came up with all these the cover 3, cover 4 beaters? What is all this nonsense?
What the hell? Well, and the part that was really bad is in the fantasy football league I'm in with you and Diesel, I was going up against Tyreek Hill. And
that's tough.
It was tough. I mean, 10 receptions for 100 and something yards and 2 touchdowns at the end of that game. Like, yikes.
I don't know what Miami did at the second half. I don't know what they changed up. It's like they just said, you know what, fuck it. We're just gonna just throw it down the field to Tyreek and Waddle, and we're gonna see what happens.
It was the Chiefs' offense of last year.
Yeah,
for the last 2 years. It's just like, Tyreek Waddle down there somewhere, and then that's it.
And down the middle, get a 6-6 Gesicki. What are you gonna do?
Yeah,
I feel like that's not completely wrong. Like McDaniel kind of looked at it and said, "Hey, the Chiefs have beaten the Ravens every single year with this kind of offense." And he saw it firsthand being in San Fran in that Super Bowl. And so he was like, went to Tyreek and was like, hey.
To hell with this dink and dunk shit. We're throwing you the ball down the field.
Exactly. And I watched a breakdown yesterday. So Tyreek Hill, I think it was his first touchdown. Maybe it was his second touchdown. It was late in the game, the beginning of the comeback. So I guess it was his second. The Ravens ran a play, right? Was a cover 0 look. So basically, like, it didn't look like there was any safety help or anything like that. The problem is they shaded it like it was a cover 0, like everybody was pressed up. It was a cover 1, and the freaking safety was at the line of scrimmage.
And you can't do that when you have Tyreek Hill.
You can't do that against Tyreek Hill. And you see it because the corner stops and thinks he has help, so he's playing underneath the Tyreek, thinking he's got safety help over the top who's going to come over, and he can cover the top. I'm going to cover underneath for something else. And all of a sudden, the dude turns around and sees Tyreek Hill is basically gone, and he's like, well, shit. Like, game over.
Wow. 20 in the line. No one's catching this guy.
No, nobody's catching that guy. So absolutely hell of a game by McDaniel and Tua. I think like this was the first time that we saw like Tua have like a game. We were like, that right there, that is what everyone's been saying he could be on this team. It's the first
almost 500 yards passing.
It's the first time he's had a coach who says, "This is my quarterback, and I love this guy." And
there was no question about it. Which I mean, they should ensure confidence in him.
Exactly, and he played a hell of a game, and it's like this is what we have to look forward to. This is why there's not going to be 3 playoff teams out of the AFC West, is because the Dolphins and the Bills, both in this division, they're going to have to go.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I 100% agree with you. I mean, the Dolphins were down 35-14 entering the fourth quarter, and at the end of that third quarter, that's when Lamar Jackson ripped off that 80-yard touchdown run. Shout out my fantasy quarterback right there in my big money league. That was awesome.
Yeah.
But after that, I was like, all right, Red Zone's not going to show any more of this game. And then I saw a tweet, and I was like, oh, okay, they scored twice. It's a 1-score game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
It's a team like we said earlier. They got too conservative. They trusted their run game, and they just basically forgot. I guess forgot about the weapons they had. They were comfortable with the 3-score lead, but I guess in today's NFL, you can never be comfortable with that big of a lead.
You can't be comfortable. We see it in so many other games this week. You can't be comfortable with the lead you have. I mean, looking at Browns Jets and the absolute craziness that was that.
That game was stupid, bro.
That game was so stupid. I don't know what you do if you're the Jets because like you really are invested in Zach Wilson, but holy crap, can you ever really bench Joe Flacco after that game?
At that point, no. He was making the throws he needed to make, and breakout star Garrett Wilson was amazing.
Absolutely, God, thank God, because he's such a good wide receiver. I felt like coming out of Ohio State, and he just he gets that game that I feel like some of the other receivers are still waiting for. You also look at Falcons Rams. Like the Falcons, everyone was like, "Oh, this game's over," and then they made it a 4-point game. It's like, wow! Again, credit to another rookie wide receiver, Drake London, getting his game. Hell yeah! I've got it in 3.
They need to involve Kyle Pitts in that offense more. In my opinion.
I do agree
big
with
time. I saw a quote from their head coach. Someone asked him why Pitts wasn't getting any targets.
Yeah.
And, did you see what he said?
I did not see what he said.
He was like, this isn't fantasy football. We're doing what we can to win the game. And I'm like, dude, if you're doing what you can to win the game, give the ball to Kyle Pitts. Dude. Like, him and Drake London are your 2 best targets. And sure, Drake London got the ball, but give the ball to Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, and the fact, like, Cordell Patterson, like, I mean, he didn't have much of a game. You got to get him more involved. Before I forget, Lamar Jackson, first quarterback ever to have a 75-plus yard touchdown run and a 75-plus touchdown pass in a game ever. Not even
he's working for his money.
He is. Really is. He broke another one of Mike Vick's records. I think one where he has the most games for 100 yards passing and 100 yards rushing in the same game. He passed Mike Vick for that. So, like, he is working for his money. I want to jump to next week because we're coming close to the end of our time here. There are some games to look at next week. There's also some games that you're like, man, this is going to be bad.
Yawn.
Starting Thursday. Oh, I'm not even going to watch football on Thursday, probably. Steelers-Browns, dude, not.
I mean, you're going to watch football, but it's not going to be football.
Yeah. Yeah. AFC North is kind of garbage, and we're seeing that right now out of this.
Yeah, I personally, talking about Pittsburgh, I think they should give Kenny Pickett a look because their defense is great. Don't get me wrong. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to beat Cleveland because of their defense, unless they let Chubb and Hunt get going. But I think Pittsburgh has a really good chance of winning this game because of their defense. But their offense is horrid with Trubisky.
I completely agree.
I don't know. And Pickett, like, you got this rookie. He can run. He's shown he can throw a little bit. Like, give him a chance. T.J. Watt's dead, and like, are we really gonna like win any games this year? If you're Pittsburgh,
if I'm the Steelers right now, you're 1-1. I think the over under for when Kenny Pickett was gonna play was week 6.
It's like when Lamar Jackson came in. And he took the Ravens almost to the play. All right, maybe he took them to a wild card spot. He won like 6 or 7 straight games. Yeah, that his rookie year, and then they lost to they beat the Chargers to like really show like this team's legit, and then they made the playoffs, and then they ended up losing to the Chargers. But still, like, I was scared. Like that team, I don't know. Maybe that's what the Steelers are going to have here.
If Kenny Pickett comes out and actually is even just better than Trubisky at this point, hell.
That's all you can ask for.
That's all you can ask for. I don't understand. I get that he has starter experience, but everything that we heard out of camp was that Mason Rudolph was doing really well there as well.
Yeah, what the hell's going on with that?
I get why you went and got Trubisky because you wanted another quarterback. We all knew you were going to draft a quarterback as well. What compelled? What did you see in Trubisky in camp or in his time in Buffalo that really made you think he was your starter? Because granted, we saw flashes in Chicago. We saw flashes like the 1.5, like the 2 half games that he got to play in Buffalo. Because they were towards the end of the season, they didn't want Josh Allen to get hurt, so they put him in the second half or whatever. You saw like flashes, but
he's never really proven
been completely what the guy that I felt like you needed. I felt like, you have a guy in Mason who kind of understands your system. He was kind of, I get wanting to move away from the Big Ben type and Mason Rudolph is a Big Ben type quarterback. You could have you ran with him, he probably would get you the same amount of wins as Trubisky, and you could move on to Pickett, and nobody's upset because Mason Rudolph wasn't ever starter quarterback quality in anybody's mind. Now you bring in Trubisky, you pay him a 3-year contract like he's a starter, and then what? You gonna let him ride the bench when Pickett starts after week 6 or week 8? Like,
it could end up being a revolving door for quarterbacks in Pittsburgh at this point.
A bad thing in general.
We'll see. We'll see how this week 3 matchup goes. My personal game of the week, and I think you might agree with me here, Buffalo, Miami. I mean, it has to be at this point.
I was going to get to that. I was going to talk about, if you're on ESPN at this point, like Chiefs, Colts, garbage. Chiefs are going to win. Texans, Bears, garbage football to begin with.
That's just bad.
Diesel. Sorry, Diesel, but it's just garbage. Titans, Raiders, like, again, bad. One of those teams is going to get a win. Happy for them. I go to Bills, Dolphins right there. And I'm like,
that's the game I'm watching. Yep.
You said game of the week. I go back to the year that the year before the Chiefs went to win or maybe it was the year they went to win the Super Bowl, where they start the season against the Rams, and it was the highest scoring game in NFL history. Both teams scored like 50-something points. It was absolutely asinine. This is that game years later. Like, I would not be surprised if it was a high-scoring game. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being 21-20 at the end of the game kind of thing. Or a 24-21 because of the defense.
I also wouldn't be surprised if the Bills' defense came out and said, you know what, you guys think you're the top dogs? Okay, we'll see about that. And they just bag them, and they end up blowing them out. Because the Bills are the better team. I mean, obviously they're the better team. They're favored to win by 6 points. So, like, I don't know. I could see it as a big game for Miami. I mean, it is a big game for Miami, but if you're Buffalo, you're going into this and saying, "All right, you guys are like trying to make a name for yourselves. We're going to shut that down right now." And that's what I think they're thinking. And they're going to have a big group of fans that are down in Miami because people always travel to Miami well, and it's the Buffalo fans, so it should be a great game.
Anywhere, but also on top of that, like, we got to talk about the fact, Buffalo's got the number 1 defense. Miami has a top 5 defense right now. They really do. And on top of that, you've got an offense that can extremely produce. The Bills handled Tyreek well when he was with the Chiefs. Chiefs never had a number 2 option.
Yeah, now you got Waddle.
You got Waddle you got to worry about. You got Gesicki. You had the Travis Kelce deal. You got Gesicki over here. Oh, yeah, it's just like this is one of those games that I could see him racking up 100. I could see him, again, 24-21 kind of game.
Defense come out and make a statement.
Defense comes out and just plays, Could be a lot of picks in this game too, stuff like that. Couple other games that I do want to highlight. I know we're coming close on our time limit here. Lions-Vikings. Because that's
going to be a shootout. That's going to be the game we thought Philadelphia-Minnesota would be. I thought Philadelphia-Minnesota would be a shootout, but the Eagles came out and made a statement. Yeah. This game is going to be a shootout.
Absolutely. I agree with
you. Both offenses great. Both defenses, whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to be...
Yeah.
Bet the over.
Go over. I look at the running backs in this game because the running backs, Cook did not get the ball at all for the Vikings. On Monday Night Football.
He should have, but it's the same thing with Jonathan Taylor. It's
if this game is a shootout, right? It's gonna be we're running the ball, pass the ball, running the ball on first and second down, passing the ball third, running the ball on first down, passing the ball on second, kind of thing. Where the offense is more balanced because they're gonna go score. You don't expect to see it just to be we're gonna come out in 5 wide and we're just gonna throw the ball the whole game, right?
That's just not. It's no.
It's gonna be a high scoring game. I'm excited. Dude, I look at this game and I'm like, this is one of those games where I'm like, I want to watch because I want to watch Amon-Ra St. Brown, Moss, Pat Pete.
Justin Jefferson come out and go crazy. And
oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That could be crazy. When I look at it, when it comes to other teams, there's a couple of other good games. I'm like, oh cool, Rams Cardinals. Both team 1-1. Both kind of were trying to figure out if they're even half of what they should have been coming from what we thought they were going to be in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
The Chargers, you get a chance to bounce back going against Jacksonville.
I don't know. If we have Herbert, I'm not worried. But if we don't have Herbert, I think we're going to lose the game.
Herbert's going to play is the problem. Based on how Staley was talking, is that you're going to do the same thing because Tua had this injury before. You're going to do the same thing with Tua where you're just going to put extra padding, probably do some pain management, probably going to run the ball a little bit more. And
give him some morphine and let him ride, baby. Let's go.
Pretty much. And that's what that's going to be for you. I'm not upset because I've got Herbert as my fantasy quarterback, but realistically, that's what they're going to have to do if they don't want to chalk this season. And since you went all in on money this season, you can't chalk it.
I think we're going to get the running backs involved, obviously, in this game. It's going to open up the pass game for Herbert. Jacksonville's defense isn't good. I mean, we should be able to put up. I mean, if we're 100%, like Keenan Allen's going to be back. We should put up 4 or 5 touchdowns and win the game handily. And Jacksonville hasn't really faced that great of a defense. I don't really know, but I mean our defense we'll be okay. But it's one of those games with the way Jacksonville's been playing. You're just like, whoa, like calm down a little bit, like settle down.
Absolutely. There's some teams that have a chance to get some wins though that kind of were like, yay! Like I look at the Falcons Seahawks game and I'm like, Falcons, this is your chance. Go get
this
a win.
Is your chance. Go to Kyle Pitts.
Yep. I look at Bengals going against the Jets. This is your one. This is your shot.
The Bengals are down bad. We didn't talk about the Bengals at all. Like we'll be quick on this, but like Jesus Christ.
That hell. My kid at 1.5 years old can get past that offensive line. That
so
is
bad. I feel bad for Burrow.
I do too. That man,
but this is the game.
This is. If you win this game, you feel good. If you lose this game to the Jets, dude, how do you as a fan, like even or as a player, even be like, woo, we still got a shot, guys? Like not one.
This is the perfect bounce back game for Burrow and the offense that has needed it against the Jets defense that is not good.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. The cards are aligning for Burrow to have a bounce back game. Everyone's going to be like, "Oh, Burrow's back!" Like, "Oh, Joe Shiesty, 4 touchdowns."
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those games.
And it's going to be one of those games.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fantasy points.
Yeah. But I think that pretty much covers everything that I've got for this week.
Mm-hmm. I don't really see anything else. Dallas Giants is going to be a fest on Monday Night Football, but other than that,
no. I mean, there's nothing else really worth talking about for that next week.
Yeah.
I think with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. Erik, Cecil, appreciate you both being here again. Love talking football with you two. Hopefully, other sports are starting to, we're starting to get to playoff baseball soon, and we're going to get to NBA here in the coming months. So it's a great time for sports, baby. And with that, we're going to call it a night. See you next week.